About 35 years ago, when I was in primary school, one of the subjects we studied was social studies. And part of the social studies syllabus was the history of ancient Greece. I'm not sure whether that is still the case or whether this topic is still being taught, but how I wish it was, because I found it very interesting and mind-stretching. And in those few classes, because we had a few of them, we did not go much deep into this topic. But I was fascinated by two outstanding facts that have stuck to my mind even up to today. Number one was the great thinkers and philosophers that Greece had, whose thoughts are still ruling the world. Examples of such men were Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, Pythagoras, and so on and so forth. Then secondly, I was fascinated by the fact that Greeks had a multitude of gods that they worshipped. They had a number of gods, and each of them was responsible for something in life. However, these gods also had a king, like we have our rulers. And their king was called Zeus. And apart from being the chief god, Zeus was also responsible for the sky, and he was also regarded as the god of thunder. Zeus was married, and his wife was a female god or goddess called Hera, and she was also responsible for something, and under her jurisdiction was marriage and fertility, among other things. It is said that at some point, Zeus fell in love with another woman called Alcmene. He slept with her, and she gave birth to a son who they named Heracles. What is interesting is that the mother of Heracles was not a goddess. So she was a human being, mortal like all of us here. But here she is, having a child whose father is a god. And not only a god, but the king of gods. Can you imagine a god having sexual intercourse with a human being? It sounds very, very strange and unbelievable. But it's possible, I think, because I have heard stories of people getting married to and therefore having sexual intercourse with spirits, which some in one of our languages called emigini, or the spirits. And so that tells you that these things are not new, they are still happening. And not only that, even the Bible records an equally strange story in which there is marriage between spirits and human beings. In other words, we have marriage between the immortals and the mortals. And the story I'm referring to is found in Genesis chapter 6, verses 1 to 4. And this is how it reads. When men began to increase in number on the earth, and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of men were beautiful, and they married any of them they chose. Then the Lord said, my spirit will not contend with man forever, for he is mortal, his days will be 120 years. The Nephilim were on earth in those days, and also afterwards, when the sons of God went to the daughters of men and had children with them. They were heroes of old, men of renown. This is interesting because we are told the sons of men, the sons of God, who I believe are spirits. They don't have flesh and blood. And they are looking at the beauty of the daughters of men who are flesh and blood, and they are admiring them. And consequently, they marry them and they bear children. Very, very strange. And if you go on to read that story, this was unacceptable. Because God was grieved and pained by whatever was going on, to the extent that he decided he would wipe away mankind off the face of the earth. And that is how Noah's flood came about. Having read the story of Zeus, I'm wondering whether he is one of the sons of God mentioned in the Genesis story, who married the daughters of men and had children with them. But clearly, what Zeus did was unacceptable and unexpected, more so to his wife Hera. Because I do not know of anything more annoying to a woman than starting to do things like what Zeus did. Because this is a king god, and he is having an extramarital affair with a human being. If he had slept with another god, another female god, perhaps it would not be so much embarrassing. But with a human being, isn't it like having a love affair with a dog? Because what does a dog have in common with a human being? And for that matter, what does a god and a human being have in common? No wonder God is not happy with what happened in Noah's day, when the sons of God married the daughters of men. I don't know how biologically this can be explained, but we see that Alcmene, a human being, became pregnant, and he is impregnated by Zeus, a god, a spirit, who I believe did not have flesh and blood. But anyhow, Heracles was born. He was born. His stepmother was infuriated, of course, by whatever happened, and she devised means of getting rid of him by having him killed while he was still young. Fortunately, her plans failed, and the boy grew and developed extraordinary strength, courage, and ingenuity. He became a culture hero and conquered dangerous archaic forces and made the world safe for humanity. So Hera grew even more jealous of Heracles' fame, and her wrath intensified to the extent that she vowed she would torment him throughout his life. At one time, we are told that she penetrated the mind of this young man and made him mad. And in his madness, Heracles killed his wife, and he also killed his children, thinking they were his enemies. Very sad. So when he regained his sanity, or when he became normal again, he was overcome with grief and remorse and shame because of what he had done. How could this happen? So he went to make consultations with a high priestess of one of the gods. And this god was called Apollo, and I think he was the god of the sun, because he wanted to discover what had caused this, and he wanted guidance on how he should move forward. The high priestess told him that his stepmother was responsible for whatever had happened, but he instructed him to go and serve a certain king called Eurystheus for 12 years, performing any task assigned to him as penance for his actions. During his stay, the king gave him 12 tasks, none of which was easy, but he accomplished all of them. So, this story sends a powerful message, I think, to the women. If you become unlucky and your husband misbehaves and sires a child out of wedlock, that is a gone case. It doesn't matter what you do, nothing will change. Most importantly, don't make your life miserable by trying to harm the child that has been born, because they are innocent and you can never know what God has hidden in this child. Who knows if he will not be the deliverer of your community, like we see this happening in the life of Heracles.